I'll let you go past me.
Okay, thank you.
The pressure, the stress. Well, hello and welcome to a very cold and fairly short ride on the Brompton G Line. Now, I have now got set up the action camera here, but I don't know how much of anything you're going to see, so perhaps I should have sort of set up some kind of way of checking that before we began. And this is always going to be a bit of a tight squeeze around here, but we made it. So oh, actually I didn't think about ice, but this path is a little bit slippy as well. So even though we've got the decent 20-inch wheels and these Schwalbe G1 tyres, it's a little bit cold. It's supposed to be 5 degrees now outside, and previously it was 4 degrees, so definitely cold enough for a ground frost. So I'm not going to go too wildly down here. I'm just going to keep it on the brakes. As you can probably see ahead there, somebody has parked a van and half taken up the cycle lane, which means I have to kind of come out the cycle lane. For climbing those distinct sort of hills or large steep banks. Hi. One of the questions I was asked last time was which cycle path were you on, and it's Route 66. So if you go to the Sustrans website and then click on the map, probably a lot of people actually know all this anyway, so they're probably wondering why I'm saying it, but this is the stretch between Huddersfield and Mirfield, because I sort of live just 5 minutes up the hill from, or thereabouts, from where we've just entered. Now that path also sort of goes back Huddersfield way, so you can get down to Huddersfield town centre, and it goes further. I believe it sort of becomes Route 69 at some point, but it goes quite a ways on from Mirfield. But as it's doing that, you do have like sections that are just being at the side of the road, so it's not all cycle path all the way down. So the gear ratios, as you're getting up to speed, I'm in top gear now, gear 8, it's pretty good. I mean, you could with this bike, because of its bigger wheels and tyres, and you could almost go one gear higher, possibly. But I think it is sort of geared more for the sort of hilly sort of situation, which a lot of the previous Bromptons, I must admit, around these areas didn't sell as well. Partly because the original design was really all about commuting cities, particularly London, getting on the tube, getting on the train, and the compact nature of the fold. But I think this bike they have designed with more of the sort of hills in mind. Now the bigger wheels and tyres, and particularly these sort of semi-gravel tyres with a bit of a tread on them, do handle much better in things like we just came through there with the leaves, probably some icy patches. Now I'm in the lowest gear here and I do feel it a little bit climbing up this, what on the camera might not look like a steep bank, but that bit was fairly steep, and this bit is kind of just a steepish kind of ongoing hill. So I'm wearing these Polaris gloves and my fingers are a bit cold. My body, my arms, my legs are all nice and toasty warm. So all the layers. I've even put a set of waterproof over trousers on just in case there are any sort of splash ups or rain or anything. I'll just get across this main road here and then we can start to talk about who might find a use for the Brompton G Line. So I suppose the first question is, do you go for a standard bike or a folding bike before you sort of even start thinking about, is it Brompton or some other bike? And I've had both, and I've had both in an e-bike and a manual configuration. And I still think that if your choice is a folding bike and you're sort of prepared to spend more money than you would on other brands, the Brompton is definitely, from kind of robustness, quality perspective, the model that I would always go for and recommend to friends and family. But there are also cheaper alternatives, so it kind of depends on as well how often you're using it and how long you're going to keep it. If you're sort of just taking it away in a camper van or something like that, and you're not really sure whether you'll use it more than once a week or something like that, then you might want to go for a cheaper option. Oop. I'll let you go past me. The pressure, the stress. So there are still a few hardy cyclists out in this weather. Not just me. Not as many as you get in the sort of spring and summer, early autumn months. This cycle path gets quite busy because it is like a bit of a sort of a on the edge of multiple towns where you can kind of get away from it a little bit. So just pop it straight down into 8th gear going down here. Again, just being conscious that the roads perhaps haven't had as decent a treatment as the main roads. Plenty of space here. Hi. Little lady walking the dog. And we're going to turn off on the cycle path. Now it looks like a lot of cyclists don't use this bit of the path. They seem to continue on the road here, which I assume takes them, I don't know, is that, quite know where that takes them, but I'm assuming they know that that road either takes them in a completely different direction to this, or they're just avoiding this bit of the cycle path for whatever reason. Now, for people who are also train spotters, there are quite a few, or have in the past as I've been cycling along this path, been quite a few trains coming through here, and you sometimes, probably less so these days, but you sometimes see train spotters kind of further up here where the railway line bridge is. I've seen 1 or 2 steam trains over the years coming through. It's kind of interesting when you're out on a bike, because if the gears are set up well for you and it's comfortable to ride, and I have to say the G Line is obviously designed more for these kinds of bumpy roads and cycle paths than the standard 16-inch wheel Brompton. Bit of a bell. And again, he's on the phone, so maybe 2 bells. I'll go around the side here. Thank you. And that does make a huge difference in terms of, it's almost like a sort of layer of suspension that well, it is, I suppose, you know, a softness that you get through the much larger tyres and wheels. In addition, I've got the Brooks Flyer saddle. Just give him a quick. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I think in this country, because we've got such a sort of a limit to how many cycle paths we have, that they are sort of shared with sort of dog walkers, runners, and in some cases even horses. And it kind of really does make you think a little bit. I mean, I love cars, love motorbikes. Bit of a sort of a petrol head, I suppose, to a degree. But I also love cycling. And to me, it's always in this country about one or the other. It's like, let's convert some existing roads to frustrate drivers by converting parts of that road into a cycle path or a cycle lane, rather than let's have both. Let's set up as many new cycle lanes that are not in any way interfering with roads. In fact, they're more direct to get from A to B. So you can live somewhere, and there are ways of commuting from there to places of work, places to shop, town centres, without at all having to go on the main roads. And you know, that could be up and down the country, unless you're living like completely in the middle of nowhere. So we will have a little stop here. Shall we just do the foldy bit? Let's see how that copes on a hill. Well, not too good really. So yeah, I mean, apart from it being cold, it's a brilliant day for a bit of a runabout on the bike. These little clips here on this Brompton messenger bag, these little sort of press studs, I think they're called, are really faffy. Trying to just find, you know, they I think used to be zips on a previous version of this bag. I don't know if it was called a tea bag or whatever it was. So much better than those little press stud things. I mean, they're faffy at the best of times. Then when you're wearing gloves, it just makes it all that little bit more faffy. And I'm always, you know, when I'm making anything, thinking about buying anything, or sort of modifying it from what it was like just as a standard version of whether it's a bike or a car or whatever. Hi there. You alright?
Yeah.
Nice to see a bit of sunshine.
It is, I get warm here, the sun shines on you.
It's always a good stopping spot here, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And we just keep plodding on now, back over the bridge. This is the spot where I was talking about the trains. There must be a tunnel or something going under that little bridge. But the railway line's just down there, and this is where the train spotters often are. Take it all nice and easy. Hi again. This is where we can use a few more of the gears going up. Get it up into top gear on here for a little while. This is sort of fairly level. Without killing yourself, this is kind of the pace it's going to go at, which may look fairly slow actually on the camera. We'll slow it down a bit here to pass. Hi. And you do get a few sort of rattles from things in the bags, like I always carry sort of multiple puncture repair kits, spanners, multi-tools, and that's why it's useful to have those back pockets on the front bag. And I have been looking at the rear rack bags for this bike, because obviously over the years with a 16-inch bike you pretty much had a type of rack on that all these aftermarket third-party sellers designed a variety of bags for. And I know sort of more recently on some of the bikes that Brompton produce, they have a rack that's very similar to the one on the G Line. And yeah, just trying to find a bag that actually fits for sure on the back of this. That's if I do decide to do any kind of longer distances. Just a nice bike to plod around on, really. But it would be useful to have those extra storage bits. You know, if you had a tent or sleeping bag or, you know, change of clothes or whatever it was, or even just as part of a sort of a keep fit regime, certainly as you're getting older you could do the odd shopping run and things like that. Hi there. And one thing that I have noticed on this bike is the brakes are very good. So the hydraulic disc brakes, can't remember the name of the brand on it. And when I first got it, and I have to say I've thought this about a number of bikes over the years, that the front one just felt a little bit spongy compared to the back one. And I did ask them to bleed it at the shop, or in fact the guy who served me the bike, I bought the bike off, suggested that it needed bleeding and called in this guy to do it, who said that doesn't need bleeding, it's fine, nothing wrong with that. In a kind of argumentative tone, and I just ended up getting out there, paying for the bike, and waiting to see from test riding it what it actually worked like. And it's fine, it seems to be okay. Bit of a hill again. Bring it right down to second gear here. Probably won't talk as much as I'm going uphill. I'm just hoping that you can hear me rabbiting away. Not that necessarily you would want to, but that rather than just wind blowing across the mic. This is where the sunshades would come in handy if I had them. I think I need a checklist of things to make sure I've got before cycling. Yeah, so it works really well. I mean, if you've had or ever test ridden one of the Brompton 16-inch bikes, you'll know that if you're used to bigger bikes, they can feel a little bit sort of twitchy or more sensitive on the front wheel, and this one doesn't have that at all. You know, it really is a nice and easy bike to ride. I think combining it with the Brooks Flyer saddle also makes a difference, because you get those little extra springs in the back of the saddle that kind of add to the movement that you can have without any shocks. A bit more of a hill coming up again, so we'll just drop down the gears. Sun directly in our eyes, that's where the peak of this helmet is useful. It's not going to be useful for you because you don't have a helmet on. Well, maybe you do, but the camera doesn't. So I'm impressed with this bike. I had one comment to say I'd spoiled it by adding unnecessary lights to it. Yeah, not sure I'd say they're unnecessary if you're riding a bike at night to have lights. But I did take his point on board that I suppose whenever you add things to it, you do take away the original aesthetic look of anything, don't you? It's not that lights are like a bit of bling you're adding for the sake of it. They are sort of a bit of a fundamental necessity. And given you never know, even if you set off on a journey thinking that you are going to I'm just actually focusing for just a minute on the traffic here, because with those traffic lights it is a little bit of a dangerous junction, and then just carefully navigating through all the mud there and the decaying leaves and the cold surface. Yeah, even if you set off on a journey when it's daylight, so let's say you go somewhere and you've got a couple of hours of daylight and you think, well, I'm going to be back in time, no need for lights, I just go with it as it is. There is always the possibility then that something happens and you are later, you get delayed, you have to take a detour, or you get a puncture and you have to repair it at the side of the road, and that adds in time. And there is always the risk that by the time you're in that last sort of half hour getting home, that you do need lights. So it isn't really, not sure what he meant by unnecessary. Maybe he means because I've got more than one. But again, I always like to have a backup, because I've had these USB charging lights before and thought they were fully charged, only to find out that after 5 minutes they'd gone flat. So had I not got like a second standard battery set, you know, I wouldn't have any lights at that time of night. I did have a comment about the graffiti, but you know, even though I do try when I'm making videos to abide by the BBC guidelines that I once abided by many years ago, it's not like I have a team of people sort of assessing the environment and risk managing a very simple, straightforward video. So if I sort of pull up somewhere and lean the bike against a wall, and that's part of the environment I'm cycling through, I don't know what half of the graffiti actually means anyway. I'm not like a young man. I know what all the street talk is. Hi there. Now I've got a complete headwind now. That makes a big difference. Even on the level, I'm in top gear, but with a headwind is really pushing me back. Well, I'm just hoping that the one thing that I wasn't really able to check on this camera, or didn't check on this camera, apart from the sound, hopefully that works, is whether the camera's actually giving you a bit of the top of the bike or not. It's a little bit harder when it's in one of these sort of body mount things. Now I do have a way of fastening it to the side of the helmet, which if this video doesn't turn out well enough, then that's what I will do next time. Thank you very much. I'm about to do a bit of hill climbing again. But rather than boring you with all of that hill climbing stuff and me heavy breathing, I shall say farewell right here. Thank you very much for watching this little video. Hopefully we'll get to do some more on the Brompton G Line. If we get days like this, I can do short runs. If we get days when it's a bit warmer, I can do some longer runs. But in the meantime, bye bye for now. Leave it. Come on, look. Come on, you can't stay there. All protected in there, aren't you? Eh? So you shut them eyes. I found this little hedgehog in the middle of the road. It's like a bit of a young one. So stay there. Stay there, it's alright. opening its eyes, having a little look around. And hopefully we can get it back. Across this busy road though, first of all.